Hello everyone, Michael here. It is January 2023, a brand new year. We just wrapped up 2022, and as is the usual for this time of year, a lot of people are stopping to think about their New Year's resolutions and what kind of goals they want to set out to achieve for the upcoming year. But also it's a good time to do some self-reflection on everything that transpired in the year before. Now, I did just that in a brand new podcast episode for a brand new podcast that I just got off the ground and running over on my new Midnight Coffee substack that I started a couple months ago. So if you're interested in checking out what I'm using Midnight Coffee for and what kind of content I'll be sharing over there, I will leave the link down in the video description. But I did want to pull out a little bit of an excerpt from the video episode of that first podcast and share it here with you guys on YouTube. In this clip, I am discussing with my good friend Jason Collins some of the lows of my writing career that I experienced in 2022, some of the things that ultimately made me feel like a failure, and then also how I eventually managed to pull myself out of that, bounce back, and get really excited for the upcoming year and the projects that I want to work on. This video and the podcast episode is really the first time I've been able to share any of this information with people outside of my family and close group of friends. But the moral of the story is, even though there were several times in 2022 where I seriously considered quitting writing and stopping publishing, I somehow convinced myself to keep going and to continue to look for creative ways to do things and to change things up, to kind of reset, refresh, and continue going strong. And I'm happy I did, because I'm excited to see what this upcoming year is going to bring. I'm excited for new projects. And more importantly, I'm excited to share them all with you.
What about you? What about your 22 year from a business perspective? How did that pan out for you?
It's terrible. It was awful.
That was a hard question to ask, because I know how it turned out.
So talking about like YouTube and going viral and hitting the algorithm and stuff like that. I'm seriously considering naming this episode of the podcast 2022 my year of failure. Just to, get the clicks. And I joke, and I want to, this is one of the major topics that I actually really wanted to talk about on this first episode of the podcast, because this is some information that I really have not shared with anybody outside of my family and close friends. This is not something that I have really discussed or talked about with any of my, for lack of a better term, social media audience. The people, because there's people that have been following me that have supported me on social media, on Facebook or the newsletter and Patreon for several years. And, I've developed relationships with them. I know about their kids and their spouses, and they tell me their interest and we chat about stuff. I haven't even shared this with any of them because it was such a difficult thing for me to come to terms with. And I didn't want to project any negativity outward into my, social media audience, who is there because they want to have a good time and they want to hear about my work and they don't want to hear me tell a sob story. And that's not what this is. This is not a sob story. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me because, I'm a very blessed person. This is not like I have fallen on hard times, but in terms of my writing career, 2022 was difficult for me because it was my lowest year in terms of revenue and profit in about the last 2 or 3. Things have been going really, really well. And ordinarily, that wouldn't have been that big a deal. But in the first quarter of 2021, the company that I had worked for as an IT director for 12 years was in the process of getting acquired by a larger company. And up until that point, for about the last year, I had been really struggling with wanting to grow my author career because things were consistently in an upward trajectory. Things were going well. I was making a decent living. obviously in IT, but I was starting to see the revenue of the books get very close to the same, level. And you and I have had several conversations about wanting to be able to commit time, more time to our creative efforts and try to grow our respective businesses. And I thought, this is the time. This company is getting ready to get bought. It's not going to be the same company anymore. This is my jumping off point. This is my sign to go do this. And the stars aligned, and it was going to work. And it did work. I quit my job, and I was able to, write full time for, officially for about a year and a half. Everything was going well, but after about the first year, things started to really nosedive. And by things, I just mean revenue. So I am a self-published independent author. I do all of my own marketing. I do all of my own, everything from the business perspective. I do outsource, editing and stuff like that. I'm not crazy, but the sales were going down, and no matter what I could think of to try from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, it just wasn't rebounding. It just completely fell off a cliff to the point that I said, okay, my fun run is over. I have to go get a job again, and fortunately I have a skill set, I work in IT. I have a skill set that's in demand, and it's not that difficult to find a job. So again, that's why I say I'm very blessed. I'm not, on the corner with, a cup out holding for change. What the sad part was coming to terms with having tasted the idea of fully working for myself and being able to create for a living. Having tasted it, it was very difficult to then go back to the corporate 9-to-5 world. But also there was an overwhelming sense of failure that really seeped into me, because I had convinced myself for so long that, I have managed to achieve X by doing this in my free time, writing in the mornings and on lunch breaks and on the evenings and learning marketing and doing all this stuff outside of my 9-to-5 business hours, that, oh man, imagine what I can achieve when this is all I have to do, when I can commit all of my time and resources to it. And it had the complete opposite effect. Like, it just seemed to be nothing but a downward trajectory. I wrote 3 books, in that time, basically. And they just didn't do well. They really didn't. And looking back, I think the biggest mistake that I did was I stopped writing my Lance Brody series. I had 6 books out in the Lance series at the time, and I had this idea for a spinoff private investigator series that I got really excited about for a while, trying to think I could, have something fresh and different and go in a different direction for a little while and maybe find some new readers in a different genre that might like this series and then cross over to my other series. And I mean, to be frank, nobody cared. Nobody really gave a shit. And that, what I mean by that is my core audience that loved my Lance Brody series, there were several of them that were excited about my new series and they read it and they liked it. But the majority of people just wanted more Lance. And in that 6-month gap where I could have had 2 Lance books out, and instead I had 1 Shiffy and 1 Lance, I lost momentum. And I didn't get it back. So by the time the 7th Lance book came out, which came out November of 2021, people were excited again. And, that book did fairly well. And then I fucked up again, and I wrote another Shiffy book because I thought, okay, Lance is kind of at a good stopping point for a while. Let me start to build up this other series. Let me try again. 1 book never sells well. You need 2 or 3 in a series to really start to see something take off. So I wrote the second one, and that one did even worse than the first one. Like, just complete flop. Like, nobody bought it. Still nobody's bought it. It's my worst selling book since I've started to have any success. So I got really down, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to go back to horror. Right? The PI stuff's not working. The people want the supernatural and the horror, which is fine because that's my genre that I hold closest to my heart. So I wrote a standalone horror novel called The End House that was a lot of fun to write. Like, I genuinely enjoyed writing it for the most part. But I almost stopped writing it halfway through because the moment of realization where I knew that this fever dream was over, you know, like the self-employed writer part of me was completely done because, you know, I was seeing the numbers and I was like, okay, I can't milk this anymore without, you know, doing things I know I shouldn't be doing. I almost stopped writing it because I was like, what's the point? This is done. Just go get your IT job, go work your 9 to 5, collect your check, and stop chasing this for a while because you're just stressing yourself out. Like, you're missing out on life's enjoyments because all you can think about is working and then working some more and trying to fix this. And it was just driving me nuts. So thankfully, I sucked it up and kicked myself in the ass, and I finished that book because it is truly one of my favorite books that I've written. It's just a lot of fun. It's just full of horror tropes and, you know, it doesn't have to conform to anything. And I had a blast writing it, and a lot of people really, really liked it. I mean, it's well reviewed. Still not as good as a Lance book, though. Sales are still not touching a Lance book. So really what I've learned from this is, you know, I probably made the biggest mistake by not continuing to write the series that was ultimately paying the bills and trying to think that I had achieved something that I probably hadn't achieved yet. You know, like Stephen King can publish his grocery list and probably sell 1 million copies. People were, don't get me wrong, like I know I have readers that genuinely can appreciate and enjoy a lot of what I write, because I don't think that any of these books are bad books, personally. I think to a certain, this is me trying not to sound like I'm an amazing writer. I don't think the quality of these books is any less than a Lance book. I think what happened is I started writing Lance for the pure purpose of creating a character that readers would fall in love with and want to read a series. And I did that. And then I forgot why I did it. And I shifted gears, and the readers didn't come with me. So, you know, I should have just paid attention and remembered what I did in the beginning. But anyway, yeah, I got probably seriously depressed for a little while, and I didn't know what to do, and I just got really angry and really frustrated and almost stopped writing. And then, you know, thankfully was able to somewhat snap out of it, remember that, you know, I have a lot going on, you know, a lot of positives in my life, a lot of positive people and a lot of positive things. And I'm just kind of back to neutral now. I'm enjoying writing as I can. I'm enjoying, you know, not having to worry about it as much. And I'm just going to see what happens. And the funny thing is, things are on an upward trajectory again. You know, I repackaged the Lance books into one big bundle, like a books 0 through 7 ebook, at a pretty decent price. And I've been advertising that on Facebook, and it's been doing really, really well in multiple countries, which is nice. So I'm seeing that upward trajectory again. So, you know, I'm content, and, you know, I don't know how quickly I'm going to write new books, but I know I have ideas, and I know that I want to continue to write, which is something that 7 or 8 months ago I wasn't sure I was going to. And you remember the conversations that I had with you where, you know, I was like, I'm done with this. Why do I keep chasing this, you know, stupid dream? And it's just, I'm killing myself in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely had a few hard conversations. I think, you know, and you were saying that you forgot why you started Lance, and maybe you did, but, you know, we had quite a few conversations about your Lance stories too, your Lance series, and the trajectory of his story. And at one point you were like, you know, you had said that you intended for Lance to end and you were ready to wrap it up. And I think that was probably part of the reason that you started to look at other stories and other characters to build. And I think so. I think, maybe having some time off from Lance maybe help that. I don't know if you have other ideas for Lance now. I'm not sure what's going on with that storyline, but it from what I could tell, it always sounded like you were almost getting burnt out on Lance, because you had been writing just Lance for years, and you were really excited about a new story and a new character. So, I don't know. Whether or not it was a mistake or not, who knows, but
you're right. I did get to the point where, because I wrote 6 of them. Was it 6 of them? Yeah, I think. I wrote 6 of them back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 if you count the novella, the prequel. And yeah, there was part of me that I felt like wanted just a little bit of a break, wanted some breathing room. And when I wrote book 7, I thought it was going to be the end, the final end. And what really happened there was, it was two things I realized. The first one was the bigger problem with my Lance series was, so each of the books can stand alone for the most part, except maybe the last 2. Books like 0 through 5 can basically stand alone. 6 and 7 are kind of a sequel to each other. They all have their own self-contained mystery and their own self-contained plot, but there's an overarching bigger picture plot with a lot of the characters. And that was the part that I was having a hard time with. I was like, I cannot, like, there's 26 plus books in the Jack Reacher series, right? Mark Dawson's got, I think, 24 or 22 in his John Milton series. Harlan Coben had, I don't know how many Myron Bolitar books he had. Like, there are series out there that can go on for a long time. Sue Grafton with her Private Eye series. I mean, she got the 25th letter of the alphabet before she passed away. I mean, there's lots of them. But my problem was the big picture plot. I could not drag that out for 20 books. So I knew that part had to come to an end, and that's what I did. And it ended really well. I was very happy with the arc that I built. And as of right now, books 0 through 7 are basically one big chapter of Lance's life. That's the way that I've started to look at it. And as I realized that, and as I got into the writing of the last bit of book 7, and I got to the prologue, which is the end, I think I need to explain that, but the end of that series, I found myself all of a sudden very sad that I was about to part ways with Lance. And I realized there's more to this kid. He's young. He has this new it really is a new chapter now of his life that he's getting ready to go off into. And I ended the book. I'm sorry if this is spoilers. It's not specific spoilers. I ended the book with verbiage that basically says just that for now, things are okay, but there's bound to be more coming down the road. He's not done, and he knows that, but he's going to enjoy the peace while he can. Mm-hmm. And, so I have several, at least 2 other ideas for more Lance books. I have an opening chapter for the next book in my head that I just need to write. I got to flesh out the idea a little more. So I think there's going to be more Lance. I know there's going to be more Lance. I just have to sit down and write it. So you're right. I think there was some burnout. I think there was some pressure because I was trying so hard to succeed and grow this business to the point that I could walk away from my IT job, which, I was able to do. It just, I could not sustain it for whatever reason. So I think I'm ready just to kind of to take him back up again and see what happens.
Yeah. I guess it could have been one of those just situations where a proverbial iron in the fire, you tried to get another one in there, but the other one got too cool.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what happens. And there's, the good news is, because I am self-published, independent, I can do all this myself. Like, the whole Lance box set was just something that I came up with on a whim to try, because I've tried everything else. I gave it a little bit of a different look. I made a different cover for it, and, just to see if it would generate interest, and it has. So, like, I guess the lesson that I taught myself was, I mean, yeah, you can quit, sure, but it really sucks and you probably shouldn't. Keep fighting and maybe you'll figure something out again.